Everyone, this is Ruby Powers with Powers Law Group, and today we're going to talk about mandamus. And really, this is when you're tired of waiting, you've done everything you can, and you're basically have to sue the government to move forward. And so we're breaking free from delays and stop the wait with the writ of mandamus. I'm a board certified immigration attorney. The law firm is 14 years old, and I've been practicing 15 years. And even before that, I was in immigration at the International Student Office at UT Austin, as well as Committee on Homeland Security in DC in 2004. So I'd say I'm an advocate for immigrants and others in general, the community, as well as an author about law practice management, author, professor, and an immigration attorney. So this is something that's really important because, before the Trump administration, we were able to get a lot of things resolved with the ombudsman. And then during the Trump administration, the ombudsman really, for USCIS in particular, we really weren't seeing the results that we had seen before. And then some cases have just gone completely out of whack, and the processing times are either 6, 7 years, 3 years, almost 4 years for things that generally would only take 6 months. And so, unfortunately, I'm having to file a lot more mandamuses than ever before. So, what is all this stuff? Because when I usually talk about this, people like don't even know how to spell it or write it or anything. So, let me just break it down. So, the writ of mandamus is a legal remedy or a court order that's used to compel a government official, public authority, or lower court to perform a specific duty or action that they legally obligated to fulfill. The term mandamus comes from Latin and translate into we command. So this allows an individual to take action enforcing legal rights, breaking free from delays, compelling performance of duties, and addressing abuses of power, restoring balances of fairness. So that's what we're doing. And in many cases, what we're talking about in this situation is, hey, someone's been waiting. I've been waiting way too long. We don't know why it's taken so long, but this is wreaking havoc on our lives, and it shouldn't take this long. So I'm going to sue you to move this along. That's sort of the short version of this. So there's a couple of elements you need. You need to clearly identify who's the petitioner seeking the mandamus. So that's generally our client. The respondent should specify which government agency is responsible for taking the desired action. It could be several, so you have to explore that properly. Jurisdiction, whom established jurisdiction of the court, unreasonable delay, exhaustion of the remedies that you've tried everything, request relief, and supporting evidence establishing what you've done and why the complaint in general. So to build a strong case, you're looking at documenting what you've done, what you've tried to do, what you've tried to get movement on, that you've done your due diligence, you've exhausted your remedies, and that bottom line, that you're suing the government agency that is the one who's holding the file in their hands and could make the decision. But for them making that decision, basically everything would move forward, except they haven't made the decision. You're compelling them to do that. So you want to demonstrate you've exhausted administrative remedies and the harm and prejudice, and maintain a clear record. So you want to be documenting everything you've done to try to move the case along. And then once you do file, you want to make sure you adhere to all the clear deadlines. So let's go back for a second. Let's talk about some processing time. So about a couple of years ago, I think the USCIS website got a little bit more clear as to the processing times, and it clarified by different case types. Like it wasn't just I-130, but it would be I-130 for a U.S. citizen petitioner, or I-130 for a legal permanent resident petitioner for F2A category, something. It was really more specific. So that was we're really grateful for that. One thing I'd love to see is them divide up the difference between the e-filing versus the paper filing, but they haven't done that yet. But now, and I want to hold up for 1 second, because we're not just talking about USCIS processing in these mandamuses under immigration matters. You can do mandamuses for non-immigration things, and you can do mandamuses that are not related to USCIS. So it could be related to another agency, but for what we're normally talking about is something that's related to USCIS. And we also include the other agencies, like potentially FBI or Department of State, depending on where the file is at and who needs to make the decision. So anyway, processing times are important. I just want to note that you don't have to wait for the processing time to be beyond that processing time to sue, but there's also considerations about unreasonable delay and the impact that's made on the individual. Generally, the processing time, it's outside of processing time when we sue, generally, but sometimes there isn't even a processing time. And some of these processing times are just so ridiculous that you don't even need to wait for that. But the thing is that normally you can't go up the ladder of exhaustion of remedies and advocacy until that processing time has been exhausted. So there's lots of different ways to check. There's a way to check the case status. So I just wanted to mention that here on USCIS website, you could try to schedule a InfoPass, but really they have this new system now that you can schedule communication online, and they're really trying to focus people to doing that on the USCIS website. And then we've also gone all the way up to ombudsman, which it does sound funny and it's not always easy to remember how to spell, but I've said it so many times that I do know how to spell it. But it's basically sort of like the suggestion box place of like how we can improve and where things go wrong and you need to get things cleared up. But there were so many complaints under the Trump administration that like I think they try to limit which ones they could actually remedy. But what I do like about having to file an ombudsman generally is that it does get you organized, because you have to list all the different things that you've tried to do to clean up and move the case forward. But it's worth looking into that, because that is another potential option. And then you can also contact your congressperson or senator, bring it to attention. Usually what they do is they have on their own website how you can give them permission to help be an intermediary with a governmental agency. And so find out who represents me, put in your zip code, your address, either go with congressperson or senator, and then look on their website. You're asking for support, and then go ahead and fill that form out, and then they'll be in touch with you. Some representatives and senators are a lot more eager and more organized to help you out than others. I would say generally go with one and make contact and try to make them your champion before you go after a whole bunch of agencies, because then it might get confused. The USCIS might, or whichever agency, might get confused. But this is definitely another potential option. So for jurisdiction, it's found, the subject matter jurisdiction for mandamus is statutory and found under the Mandamus Act and the Federal Question, as well as the Administrative Procedures Act. When we're looking at venue, where do you file the suit? So this is important because you want to know, which attorney can help support me? Well, we are admitted in the Eastern District of Texas and the Southern District of Texas right now, but we're going to continue to be admitted into other courts. But also we can team up with other attorneys in other places. It's called Pro Hoc Vice. And sometimes we find out that it's not that complicated to get admitted into some other districts, and we'll just go ahead and get ourselves admitted for your particular case. So don't let that hold you back. So you want to look, the jurisdiction is proper in the district where the plaintiff resides, the jurisdiction where the defendant resides, the district in which a substantial part of the events or omissions given rise to the claim occurred. So you want to evaluate which is the proper jurisdiction and venue, which venue is the proper one that has jurisdiction over the case. And one other note is that the federal district boundaries are not the same as the USCIS districts. And so that is something to consider. Now, so this is a chart, this is the district courts. And as you can see, in Texas, we have 4. We have the Eastern, the Southern. So Southern is where Houston is, for example. There's the Western, which has Lake Austin and San Antonio. And then there's the Northern. But the way it's split up in the district courts is not Yeah, if we didn't overlay with USCIS jurisdiction, it's like you get something completely different. So you have to watch for that. But as you can see, how it's split, these are things to consider, depending on where the right venue to file is. Now, one thing to note is that most of our mandamus cases were also filing an APA, which is Administrative Procedures Act claim. And so the Mandamus Act is to compel administrative agencies to act. But the APA is also needed when you're demonstrating that that there's a violation of the APA. So these are things to the attorney, when they're filing these, are considering and making sure to put in your complaint. So the APA creates a cause of action to sue federal agencies. We're not specifically permitted by statute, and entitles relief. A plaintiff must show either that the agency unlawfully withheld action it was required to take. They can be more powerful and effective than mandamus, so that's why we include those in the complaint language as well. And the APA instructs courts reviewing regulation to invalidate an agency action found to be arbitrary, capricious, an abuse of discretion, or otherwise not in accordance with law. So these are this is the conditions that we put in the complaint. So who are the parties? The plaintiff is our client. Make sure the person you're filing is standing to actually file the lawsuit, and then our defendants are usually it's USCIS, the Secretary of DHS, the U.S. Attorney, maybe the Director of National Visa Center, FBI. So it depends on who we're suing and for what reason. The drafting the complaint, we need to make sure who all the parties are, specify the section on jurisdiction and venue, have the relevant facts and proof to back it up, and including and clearly identify what you're asking for. Sometimes you get so busy working on things and you're like, oh, I just want the answer, but is it you want the asylum interview and the decision? And clarify that. So those are the types of things you want that your attorney is going to be doing. So when you're drafting the complaint, you're also looking to see, is there any other remedy available? And that you must show that you've exhausted all your administrative remedies. That's really critical. And ultimately comes down to you're saying, hey, government agency, you're the only one who can make this decision, and we're asking you to do it. So when we're elaborating and drafting the complaint, we have to explain if we're using the APA provision, was the adverse decision arbitrary and capricious, why exhaustion of remedies, and the final agency action that we're requesting. So now when you file this, you might get a response back saying, hey, if you get what the decision or what you're asking for, will you dismiss? And those are generally what we've seen. It could be that the case continues to go forward in litigation. But for the most part, what we've seen is that we get the interview or the decision that we were requesting, and then we dismiss the case. And then our client gets the answer they need to proceed with their lives and their immigration journey, and AUSAs can dismiss the case so that no action is needed further, and everybody ends happy in the end. So agreement can be reached after the action can be taken. It also could be that if that doesn't happen, the court could grant or deny the mandamus. There's lots of different things that could happen in terms of further litigation and moving forward with the case. But for the most part, we've seen dismissals after the government action that we requested has been taken. If a client prevails and they file under APA, they are able to ask for attorney's fees under the EAJA, but in most cases, I haven't seen that gone forward, especially if you agree to a dismissal. So that was a quick overview. I was trying to make it as fast as possible. Bottom line, if you have a case that's been taking too long, you've tried calling, emailing, ombudsman, USCIS, congressperson, a senator, or some variation. I mean, typical cases that we have right now are asylum applications that we filed in 2016, 17, maybe even 18 right now, and you haven't gotten an interview and you're requesting one and a decision, those are cases we're doing also for I-730s, for I-601As, in some cases U visa, deferred action EAD. So these are the types of cases we can help you with. If you want to give us a call, we can explore options, talk about it. So our number is 713-589-2085. Hopefully this was helpful. We've got more September webinars coming up, including investment options for immigrants, immigration court motions to reopen, and conditional residency later in the month. So my name is Ruby Powers. I'm a board certified immigration attorney. We also have Cynthia and Larissa here, and more to come. We're located in Houston in the Heights area, as well as the Woodlands, in Woodlands. So you can see our addresses below, but we actually can help people anywhere in the world on U.S. immigration matters. Feel free to give us a call. You can email us, find us on social media, all of our social media. We put a newsletter out in English and Spanish every other week, and we are also providing you weekly content in English and Spanish. So if this was helpful, please feel free to share, give us a review, give us a call, and hope that we can help benefit your situation or share it with someone else you think could benefit from it. Thank you, and then see you next time.